I'm Cass Dowding and this is the Sentimental Gardener podcast, a gardening podcast that's not really about gardening. I sit down with plant-loving people and have conversations about the plants and gardens that hold memories and have meaning to them. I got into gardening about 10 years ago, starting with an established garden on a 600 square metre block with clay soil and a front yard full of succulents. One of the reasons I started this podcast was to meet knowledgeable plant people and learn from them, while collecting stories about how gardening connects us to people and places. And today, I'm speaking to exactly that kind of person. Chloe Foster is a horticultural teacher, radio host on 3CR's gardening show, and new author of the Rookie Gardener book, a straight-talking, joy-filled guide for people with, as she puts it, absolutely no floriferous idea where to start. She's also someone who admits to hating succulents, gets excited when plants die because it means she gets to buy a new one, and once brought a 4-headed carrot to kindergarten show and tell because it was, in her words, the most epic thing ever. That carrot came from her pa's veggie patch, where she'd pull them straight from the soil, run to the tap, wash them off and eat them on the spot, sparking a lifelong love of gardening through doing, not just knowing. In today's episode, we explore how gardens have become more like outdoor rooms than growing spaces, how fear of failure can stop us from even trying, and why the real magic happens when we stop waiting to know everything and just get started. So a big warm welcome to my guest today, Chloe Foster. Chloe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I was very chuffed to be asked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to hear all your stories and find out a little bit more about your book.
Well, I love what you're doing with this podcast because, gardeners love gardening and love plants, but there is the sentimental and emotional component to gardening is absolutely huge. Usually very emotional people are gardeners in different ways. So it's really lovely what you're doing and the stories that you're drawing out of people.
Oh, thank you.
With this podcast. Yeah, I really mean that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I noticed when I first got into it and was talking to people, and that it was almost like that Me Too moment. Like as soon as I shared, I planted this plant because my nana or something, and then that's what naturally led the conversations. And soon those stories became more about the plants. So anyway, so that's lovely that it's connecting.
Definitely, yeah.
But I always start with a question about your earliest memories.
Yeah.
So because I think our earliest garden memories can form our love affair with plants. Well, I know that it has for me, and I've noticed that for a lot of other plant lovers. So when you think back to your childhood, what's the first garden or green space that really imprinted on you?
I bought a carrot in today. My earliest plant or gardening memories is the carrots that my pa used to grow. He had an epic veggie garden.
Wow.
So Nana and Pa lived in East Ringwood, not 10 minutes from where I grew up. So we spent a lot of time with them, holidays and all that too, but we were around at their place a lot. And the ornamental side of their, regular suburban block, they're all different sizes these days, 1/4 acre block, was the ornamental side was just pretty average, but he had an epic veggie garden and a classic incinerator in the back corner of the garden. I used to remember when he'd just chucking stuff in there and burning stuff. It was great. But the carrots he used to grow were so yum. And to this day, homegrown carrots are the best. But there's a particular carrot, and it's obviously not this one that I brought in today, one that has always stuck out in my mind. It must have been, you put in you sow your rows of seeds, and must have been one that was left, or a seed blew away from the rest of the row or something. And he had grown this 4-headed carrot.
What?
And I was in kinder, so it must have been about 4 or so. And I just thought it was the most epic thing ever. So I took it to Kinder and took it to show and tell and all that, and just thought that this gigantic, weird-shaped carrot was the best thing ever. And I don't think we ate it because, I mean, it'd probably be fine to eat. But he's like, oh, no, it's not good enough. They're all woody and whatever. But even a woody homegrown carrot's better than the crap that you buy at the supermarket these days. So that's probably one of my earliest gardening memories. Just hanging out in Pa's veggie garden, like particularly pulling, like he must have grown carrots almost all year round, like particularly pulling out carrots, running to the hose or the tap, washing them off and just eating them straight. And it was also really fun to like rip off the green at the top and just like dump your rubbish on the ground. So that was just the whole thing. And he had some beautiful fruit trees. He grew heaps of apples and then the stone fruits. He had a yummy peach and nectarine tree that everything used to bear really well too. Like it was really successful. I think Mum said to me a few years ago, he was one of I can't remember the name of the company. It might have been Maxi Crop when him and Nana moved. They had a dairy farm for a number of years and then they moved down to East Ringwood. I think he was like he used to use Maxi Crop, a seaweed solution. So I remember him having like 44-gallon drums of this seaweed stuff just lying around the garden. But also I think he bought a whole heap of superphosphate back from the farm and dumped that on the veggie garden, which superphosphate is not something I would recommend using these days, and it has caused a lot of soil degradation in agricultural areas. There's other ways to fertilise your garden and these days and have everything growing healthy. Anyway, I think the super contributed to a very healthy veggie patch for a long time. And I was actually lucky enough to be the keeper of that garden for a little while. Oh, wow. So many years down the track to a few years ago, Nana passed away and Pa moved into a nursing home. The family didn't need to sell the house immediately, so I moved in there and I lived and gardened in that same garden for about 4 or 5 years, which was very special to be keeper of that garden. And it made growing veggies really easy because it had like 40 years worth of good soil work done to the garden. So it was hard. It was really hard leaving. But, house prices in Melbourne. Anyway, I loved it while I got to look after it.
That is so special, isn't it? Yeah. Did he ever get to go back to the garden and see it after he moved into the nursing home and see what you'd done, or no?
No, he didn't actually. And he was still like he was lucid for a long time. But I would go in there and chat to him about what I'd been doing in the garden and take him some little tomatoes or whatever. I've never had a go at growing carrots though.
Oh, haven't you?
Yeah. I'm not good at growing things from seed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not very patient. I've done it a couple of times with tomatoes. I need to just get some tape, some carrots, seeds in tape and try it like that. I'm not a seed grower gardener. But I need to try some carrots. But I'm too scared. Like Pa's ones tasted so good.
I have tried in the last few years. I hadn't done any before that. And these are grown from seed, heirloom seed. And the first year they ended up like curly, multi-legged.
Yeah.
And that was a shock. And it was good for the kids to see that because they're used to going to the supermarket and seeing the long, straight 20-centimetre long orange carrots. And we grew the dragons.
Yes,
they're red.
I've seen that one. Yeah, the reddy
and multicoloured ones.
Yeah.
They look pretty.
Yeah.
But what I find is working out when they're still sweet and juicy and when they do get woody. That's what I find because you're like, anyway, you just roast them, I've worked out, even if they are that little bit woody.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I found it hard and there's so much advice online, isn't it, about, you could use the tape or you make an indent in the soil and they need more water, sandy soil
they
and
need
all
really,
that.
really good, deep, loose soil to get the decent size.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a straight size.
I'm like you. I don't think I have the patience. And you've got to keep sowing it. It's like, isn't it? You've got interval times.
So can I tell you what Pa used to do? He definitely would have sown them at intervals, but he used to mix the seeds in with a bit of sand and then sprinkle it along the row.
Okay.
So the sand would help to separate the seeds a little bit, so you wouldn't have to do so much thinning out and waste the seeds so much.
That's what I find hard is thinning out.
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
Even if it's a little bit of soil that you mix in, or if you've got some river sand or something, because then you don't have to do much thinning out. Because otherwise, that's another thing with carrot growing is that the seeds are so tiny they just sort of fall into each other as well.
Yeah, that's been another problem I had. It's like a bunch of carrots organically grown together.
Were the kids okay with the curly ones?
They thought it was
a novelty.
Great. Yeah. So my youngest daughter, she at the time was going through a googly eye phase.
That's so good.
And it was actually in lockdown. So we were home, obviously, all the time in Melbourne. And most of the appliances on the house got googly eyes. And then the carrots, when I brought them inside, they had googly eyes attached. So it was so good because, the long carrot tops, it looks like hair, and then,
and whatever got you through lockdown.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. That's so right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they sound like really special memories with grandparents and the garden and and they will stay with you always, won't they?
Yeah, they were. Nana and Pa were very special grandparents. Yeah, and Pa's veggie patch was very special as well.
So many people I've talked to have those early memories of veggie patches as like their formative, garden or green space memories. So.
Yeah.
So you work as a horticultural teacher and a radio host, but you didn't wake up just a horticulturist one day. And you've actually said that you started in the industry quite young and that you studied at TAFE and that you worked in nurseries and then took on some wild roles at Melbourne Zoo and Royal Botanic Gardens in Cranbourne. Can you share a little bit about that journey?
I didn't really know at school what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I've never really been super career driven or focused at all growing, when I wasn't growing up. And you're at high school and, you're getting closer to the end of high school and school's like, well, here's all these uni courses, this is the assumption. Went to a few open days thinking of maybe landscape architecture because I always liked gardening. So I was always playing in the garden, obviously at Nana and Pa's. Mum and Dad's garden growing up was nothing special. Looking at it now, they were busy raising 2 kids. I didn't have time to do anything except mow the lawn. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do apart from I liked gardens and growing plants. Went to a couple of open days at uni, and one of them for a landscape architecture, it was horrendous. There were people everywhere. It was so overwhelming. And the hallways were really narrow as well. And Mum and I were walking through and I looked at her and I said, I don't want to do this. And she goes, right, we're going. And we just walked out. So I decided, it was probably around year 10 or 11. I was like, I don't want to go to uni. I found it so overwhelming. And then chatting to the career counsellor at school, had to sort of be like, okay, so don't want to go to uni. What are the other options? Because that's all they just keep showing. And found TAFE, Diploma of Horticulture and Sustainability at Swinburne in Wantirna, which was 20 minutes from home. And I started there and I loved it so much. And I started getting really good grades too, which was really strange. I was what I consider to be an average student at high school. And a lot of my high school friends were really smart people. So I was always getting the lower end of the grades. Looking at it now, I got above average without having to do too much extra study. So I need to give myself a bit more credit. But so I went to TAFE and I just loved it. And I had some awesome teachers. A couple in particular, Mim Wright and Brad Ferrier, were just so excitable and passionate about what they did. And I loved it and did really well and because I sort of got good grades and I found it not easy, but it just sort of, it worked for me. It made sense in my head. Latin names made sense for me. And I sort of learnt things it was really enjoyable to learn. And I got confidence and I finished at TAFE and I was like, I need to learn more. So then I went to uni.
Okay.
And I went to La Trobe Uni at their Bundoora campus, and one of the few unis with the botany department that's still remaining. And I loved it. I went back to being an average student and just passing. But I did a university science degree. Like that's wild. And worked at retail and production nurseries while I was studying. Thankfully, my boss, I would just take him my timetable that semester and he'd go, when can you come in?
Awesome.
And then we'd just work a bit more, in the uni breaks and the TAFE breaks. So I was really lucky to have a boss that would just work around it. It was flexible. Yeah. Went to Karanga Native Nursery after I finished studying and learnt a crazy bucket load about native plants. And I wasn't really into native plants before I went to TAFE.
Right.
I just liked gardening. Like I would grow, Mum would buy me a seed packet of petunias and I would, used to love bulbs. I still do love bulbs, like jonquils and daffodils. I love them. They're gorgeous. But I was never really into natives, mainly because the other plant that I wanted to tell you about today that brought up childhood memories was this horrible prickly grevillea that used to grow in the front of Mum and Dad's letterbox. It's the worst place to put a prickly plant if you have young children, because what kid doesn't love getting letters from the letterbox?
So true.
Yeah, and I used to love it so much. And Mum and Dad have this really cool big brick letterbox and you could like climb up it and all that. But in front of it was this prickly grevillea with red flower, tiny red flowers. And I'm pretty sure looking back now it was probably, sorry to out it, but it was probably Grevillea scarlet sprite.
Okay.
And if anyone knows it, it's a Rose marinifolia cultivar. Really prickly, but fantastic. I could talk about it for ages, but fantastic for little birds because it's prickly and it's safe for them and it flowers for a long time. But in front of the letterbox, that is the worst place you could put one of these things.
So funny. It's like an adventure to try and get the letters.
I used to hate it. So it took me until I got to TAFE and had a couple of teachers who were like really into native plants for me to go, oh my God, like Australia has like the coolest flora in the world. Like I fully went down the native rabbit hole from TAFE. And for many years after that, like I have actively learnt and studied the stuff that grows in Australia. And then getting to Karanga Nursery, the amount of stuff that you can, of natives that you can buy to grow in your garden is actually a really huge range. And there's some stuff that you can only get in Karanga, and we're lucky in Melbourne to be so close to it. But yeah, had some fun there and learned heaps about growing native plants. So that was really good. And then that led me to, didn't want to work in nurseries forever and have always been fascinated and loved the botanic gardens or just the concept of a botanic garden. So I've jumped into, got a job at Melbourne Zoo in working in the nursery there, growing food plants for butterflies. So another thing I've become obsessed about from working there is that relationship, that coevolution between plants and butterflies. Like there's some butterflies that will only eat a couple of species of plants.
Right.
Wild. They're
That's
usually
crazy.
Pretty threatened, some of those butterflies, and cabbage white butterflies, for example, not so threatened. There's plenty of their food around. So, yeah, I obviously learnt a lot. And when I got to the zoo, again, there was so many plants, a lot of tropical plants that they were growing that I had no idea about. So lots of learning curves. I mean, there's learning curves in every job that you end up at. And then, yeah, got a job at Cranbourne Gardens. After that, again, just completely able to immerse myself in growing Australian plants. Before jumping into teaching. So, like, back in high school, didn't really know what to do, but I was always interested in teaching.
Okay.
But I could see how hard my teachers worked. And I was like, that is unsustainable. I'm not signing up for that. So I didn't do an education degree. I didn't jump into the school teacher thing. And because I had a really good experience at TAFE, I thought, well, if I do want to teach later on in my career, I'll probably go back to TAFE.
Mm.
But I've wound up at TAFE a little bit earlier than what I thought I was going to, because as most TAFE teachers will empathise with, I stuffed my back.
Oh,
it didn't hold up. It just didn't hold up. Without going into the whole boring story, working in nurseries and the manual handling risk, I could have done better and it could have been done better.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I think on a bit more of an emotional level, I sort of thought that I was only capable of a physical role and not using my brain for a really long time. And I was very fortunate enough to I had to take time off work when I was at Cranbourne. And I probably wouldn't have made that call, except John Arnott was my manager at the time. And one day he just said, you need to take some time off.
Okay.
Like, you need to sort yourself out.
Yeah.
And I was like, thanks.
You needed someone to give you permission, it sounds like.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hard call, isn't it?
Yeah. It was one of the hardest points in my life so far. And I am really thankful that all happened, even though it was really hard. But it made me really think about what I wanted to do and what I was capable of.
Okay. And
I fixed myself from a back injury, and that's kind of rare. A lot of people, gardening or not, are like, my back, or I've had a sore back for 20 years and get on with it. But I did what I needed to do because I was had the privilege of having that time, and I feel like ball moments and all that. And I was like, what am I doing? Just like flogging my body and not using my brain at all, as much as what I am capable of. So I did a certificate in TAE, if anyone's interested, and started teaching at an RTO, and then a year or so later moved to Melbourne Polytechnic TAFE, teaching at TAFE. And I love it. My brain gets fried these days instead of my body. But I really love teaching. So I get to still do teaching, which I've always been interested in.
Yeah.
But I still get to chat about plants all day, which is really, really cool.
And being TAFE, is it more hands-on, like a lot of the learning? Because I went to university for nursing. You know, there's a whole thing there that could be said that because it is such a practical job, a lot of it we learnt not in the classroom at uni. It was out on practical. You know, it's where you learn to talk to people and do observations. But from what I understand is at TAFE, a lot of the structure of learning is hands-on. Is that right?
It's very hands-on. And look, every teacher has a slightly different way of doing it, and it will vary from whether you're doing a Certificate 2 up to a diploma.
Okay, yeah.
But the way that I do it and the way that it works in my head is I always need a bit of context for why I'm doing something.
Sure.
So I always start off a class with a bit of theory at whatever level of course I'm teaching. And then we go outside or then we go out and do our prac, whatever that might be. And, it might be, it's not necessarily going to be digging holes every time, but a site assessment, literally wandering around campus and talking about aspect, climate, microclimate, all those sort of things. Like that's the prac. Yeah, so I sort of start off with a bit of theory and then we move into doing some sort of practical most of the time.
And the students probably love it because maybe if you were a little bit further down the track in age and time, I've noticed that some teachers can get a little bit disillusioned, whatever the topic. But it sounds like because you've jumped into teaching earlier in your career, maybe you still have that spark and relevant industry experience too. Have you drawn a lot from what you've learned at nurseries and at the botanical gardens?
Yeah, big time. So, I sort of have two hort backgrounds, and that's nurseries and the public horticulture realm, which is I pull on so much for examples and ideas and all that. And, students are generally, pretty happy that there's a younger teacher teaching them that's still really passionate about it. But I'm very conscious as well to try to stay up to date with what's going on in industry, because I'm not out there gardening. I'm not in industry anymore, what we call it. So I'm try to sort of stay active in what's happening with botanic gardens and I mean, there's nothing formal. It's literally just like catching up with my old workmates every now and then and chatting to them about what they're doing at work and, you know, what's happening at the zoo or where are the, whatever nursery I was at, you know, what's happening at the gardens. It's informal like that, or it's a visit, or it's something a bit more formal in whatever way. Yeah.
And I suppose this links into the other type of work. Well, it's not paid work for you, but it is being a host on the 3CR gardening show. And I suppose you would get to see some of the people that you used to work with, like John Arnott, through the gardening show. I really admire the way you've used your skills to volunteer as well. And I understand that you used to, be a Friends of the Royal Botanic Gardens Cranbourne. What keeps you coming back to volunteering?
Oh, I think it's the people, probably. There's something, because you're not getting paid for it, there's a certain personality type that will get themselves involved in volunteering work, and it obviously comes from a good place. So the people, it's usually the people. If they weren't nice people, I wouldn't be involved with it. The Friends of Cranbourne are an amazing group of volunteers, and when I was much more active with the Friends group, they were incredible. Like whatever I wanted to do, they would let me do it. So I got, and it's a real challenge when you're starting out in any industry. You see a job ad and it's like must have experience. You're like, well, where am I bloody going to get experience if no one will give it to me? Well, that's what volunteer groups will give you.
Okay.
So, I was organising workshops and communicating with people, like a lot of those corporate term, like stakeholder engagement. You're sort of learning all those other different sort of skills that's not necessarily what your trade or what your direct job is. So I got that, and I just got to hang out with people. I found people that liked talking about plants. And I loved hanging out with my pa and learning how to grow veggies. It was like hanging out, in the book I call them grey-haired legends. And it's like talking, I've always liked talking to people and hanging out with people that are older than me and just hearing about their experiences and learning. And it was like that at Cranbourne. Like the Friends group there are phenomenal people, and they're so passionate. They're amazing gardeners. Like what they know about growing plants is insurmountable. They're just gorgeous and accepting, free thinking and open to new people and very welcoming, all those good things. So I was, very lucky. I mean, and they just sort of like, oh, come and they wrote me like, oh, come and do some little admin tasks. I was like, oh, cool. And then I found myself on 2 committees.
Oh my gosh.
Organising workshops and day trips and all that sort of thing. But it gave me a whole heap of other skills which I wouldn't have been able to get otherwise from just work when I was working in nurseries at the time. The juggle is hard between paid work and volunteer work. And I did get burnt out around that time when my back was buggered.
Yeah.
So it's something that when I am talking to students about like getting experience and volunteer work, my uni teachers emphasise the importance and value of it, and I really did take that on. And I do say that, I do pass that on to my students now, but also follow up with, but you be really precious with your time, because there's, and you were saying it before we started recording, there's always so much to do in volunteer organisations because they're volunteer organisations, but you need to like draw some boundaries and make sure that you're doing what you're doing and you're not wearing yourself out.
Yeah, because then it's so easy to then just go, I can't do it anymore, and then you drop it. But there's no redundancy plans often in volunteer groups, is there?
Yeah.
So it's really hard. But I've noticed from talking to people on the podcast or going out and exploring gardening, like local gardening groups myself, there is so much knowledge that isn't in a lot of books, or it would take you a lot of time to sift through all the books that is held in those gardening clubs. And it comes from what I've observed is just time spent doing and observing, So, yeah, there's so much value in them. I suppose that links up to the next adventure for you is the book that you've written called The Rookie Gardener.
Yeah.
I identify with that so much, the sentimental rookie gardener. What I love about the book and how you've written this is that the sections are set out in a way that it helps you tackle the learnings that you have in your garden, like almost like a timeline, like you start here and then you move on to the next bit.
Yeah.
And then it's also written in a language that's like really humorous and really relatable and fun. It doesn't feel like, oh, okay, here's the step by step. It's not dry. You've got
it's quite moist, which is one of my favourite words, which everyone's going to cringe right now. It's not. I'm sorry. I had to drop it in.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, there's things like money for nothing and the plants for free for the cutting section, and my nectar brings all the pollinators to the yard.
One of my most hated songs in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hate it.
That's so great.
But it pops into my head every time I hear something about bringing the pollinators in.
But it helps because that then sticks into your head. Like, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that's what we're here for. But could we start with like why this book and why now?
Cool. Well, why now? Look, it would have been great 5 years ago. So the idea came to me by the time the book comes out. It will have been 10 years since I had the idea and sort of started making tracks to write it. So mid-20s, and a lot of my friends were, moving out of home, or some of them were even buying their first houses, and they come to me and go, oh, I was like, what do I do? Well, I've got this garden, like, I don't know how to look after it, or what's this? What's that? What's this plant? What should I do here? And I was like, really? Well, they don't know how to keep plants alive. And this is mostly my school friends at that point. And like I said before, I was an average school student. They're really smart. I was like, you really don't know how to look after plants?
That's so funny.
Yeah. I was like, okay. And I thought, I had a look around. I was like, there's not real. I'd always wanted to write a book.
Okay.
Found out what royalties were in my teenage years. I was like, I can't sing.
You're not the next Taylor Swift.
Definitely not. I thought, I just want to write a book. Didn't really know, and sort of thought, well, it needs to be a marketable sort of topic, because if I had my way, I'd just waffle on about Australian native plants for 30,000 words. So anyway, not many gardening books around for beginner gardeners, for Australian gardeners.
Oh, that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a few UK ones, which are really good publications. But again, when I was starting out and looking for information about plants, a lot of the plant books were English or the US. And that's Northern Hemisphere gardening, so the seasons are flipped around. So say spring flowering. So I'm like, well, is it spring over there if it's going to flower in spring here? Or
you've got to, I count backwards on my fingers. I'm like, okay, yeah, so if it's May, and then I'll go 6, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I found that really hard when I was starting out. And probably another reason that I gravitated towards native plants, because that stuff, the information made sense. It was sort of easier to translate. But, yeah, so there wasn't much around. Anyway, so I started mulling that over. I spoke to my mentors, Roger and Gwen Elliott, who I'd gotten to know through the Cranbourne Friends. And to this day, they're still like two of the most amazing people I will ever have in my entire life. And Roger said, he gave me a few tips, like, you got to, having a topic that's sort of marketable, and you got to have a bit of a profile. I was like, oh, well, that's not great. And this was 10 years ago. So like media was different then as well.
So different.
Anyway, I think him and Gwen had been trying to convince Pam on 3CR that maybe you want someone younger, and no, Chloe can talk about plants. Like, she might be good on the gardening show. So that's sort of how I got into it, through Roger and Gwen. But yeah, there was my friends were moving out of home and they didn't really know how to garden and there wasn't much around. So I thought, all right, this is what I'm going to write a book on. And I wrote a Post-it note and said, you know, it wasn't a New Year's resolution, but I wrote it at the start of the year. It just said, write book. And I just had that stuck on my bookshelf for a very long time. It took me ages to start. I had no idea where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Again, through 3CR and a couple of other ways, I got to know A.B. Bishop.
Mm-hmm. Legend.
Yeah. Incredible support, full of wisdom and so willing to share. So Roger and AB really helpful in those early years. And it took me ages to start. And AB said, just start writing it. You don't have to start at the beginning. I was like, oh, okay. So I wrote out a giant contents page. I sat on this stuff. It took me a couple of years to really start writing. And then I really got into it, probably in my time off at work. No, it was after that because I couldn't sit down at a computer for a couple of years. But then really cracked onto it in 2019 and then lockdown hit. And I finished most of it in lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah. And then spent 2021 trying to find a publisher.
Okay.
That was hard. I sent it out on all their different submission dates. And, I mean, it's like applying for a job. You have to tweak your resume for their different requirements.
Wow.
They want a sample chapter. They want a sample of the half. They want a contents list, all that stuff. This is probably boring.
No, it's actually really interesting. Yeah. Because there's a process behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just like, I made a book.
Yeah.
And now it's going onto your shelf. It's like, here's 5 years worth of work.
Literally. Yeah. And then finally got on Echo found me and have been working with them. I signed with them at the start of 2023. So it's taken, so even though I had a pretty much complete manuscript that I had to do a really big edit on, I mean, the book's big enough anyway, it's been a 2-year process of putting it together with them and, yeah, working with an editor and the designer and all the team at Echo. They've been amazing. They contracted me to write a 30,000 word book, and I think this is close to 65,000 words.
And that's edited down.
That's heavily edited. And credit to them, every time they were like, oh, it's getting big, I'd be like, oh, no, it's really important because blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, we'll keep it. And then we pushed the publication date back 6 months to give us more time. And I'm really thankful for that.
So good.
Yeah, because we didn't have to rush. And otherwise I would have taken time off work and all that. So I've been able to work it in with a full-time job. Yeah.
And so it sounds like it's obviously for rookies, aimed at people who might have a little bit of garden knowledge, but you've also worked as a writer for ABC. Is it ABC Gardening Australia?
Yep.
So you've got all of that experience and you've got the experience of the 3CR gardening listeners ringing in. And what I noticed when I read through it, I felt like it just answered all the questions that I'd ever Googled about gardening.
Oh, thank you. That's the nicest thing.
So it really shows that you listen and you pay attention to like where people are at. And it felt like all my questions that I felt was silly, you just explained it so well and in the language that didn't make me feel, like things like, well, what type of dirt do I have outside? And then you've given the science, well, here's how you actually work it out. You put it in a jar and you fill it. You teach us the science behind it. You make it really accessible. And, I love the way you've approached it. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, when you've asked a question before and someone's been like flippant of like dumb, like, and
what,
they've made you feel
that?
dumb. Yeah. That's an awful feeling. So I was really conscious in my writing to, not be like that. And again, like when my friends would come to me with, like, I'll flip through a page and go and have a look at a paragraph and go, oh, yeah, well, my friend Phil asked me that, or Milnsey asked me about that, or I had to explain this to Laura or something. So a lot of it is conversations, but a lot of the set out, like you said before, is, how you would come to a new garden and start out planning what it might be and whether that's an existing garden or something that's brand new. And it's also sort of in the order of that we deliver subjects in like a Cert 2 or Cert 3.
So good.
Or across horticulture in general, but the sort of information sort of aimed at those levels. Yeah.
I've read that one of your biggest passions, and it comes through the book as well, is based on Beth Chaddo's famous quote about right plant, right place. And yesterday I put out on Instagram like questions for Chloe and someone did ask this question, how do I work out the right plant to put in the right place? Are you able to briefly answer that?
Not briefly.
No, I know.
It's
well, how do you approach it?
Well, because I've studied it, for me it's just like we'll keep learning about plants and where they grow. Okay. That's probably the shortest way I can answer it. But the first chapter of the book, or the first section of the book, is sort of those foundationals or those essentials of knowing your soil and your climate. And something I learned at uni was that those two things are the biggest drivers for plant species distributions. Like where a plant species stops growing is when the soil type changes or the rainfall changes or something like that. So soil and climate, and then your microclimates within that. So, you know, at the back of a garage where it's really shaded and might get a little bit down the bottom of the hill, might get a little bit wet. So you're like, okay, so there's two sort of criteria or tick boxes, and then you can find a plant that fits those conditions. So it's your weather, your climate, your soils, and even a bit of topography as well. So, you know, the top of a hill is going to be drier and there may not be as much good nutritious soil, but down the bottom, that's where it all washes down to. So you're going to want plants at the top of the hill that can maybe tolerate less nutrients. And again, like you building that characteristic of your garden bed and finding plants that will suit that. I don't know whether that seems really easy to people, whether it seems really boring to people to try to find that out, but that's what makes me tick. That's probably the shortest answer I can give you.
It's brilliant. It's so good. And also you've got like a plant list at the back, don't you? Like recommendations for they suit, you know, this much watering or these spots. So I think I've always found it hard going to a nursery where there aren't specialist horticultural people walking around.
Yeah.
And you just look at all the plants on display and you're like, that one looks pretty. I'll go just pop it in any spot at home. But there's such knowledge that goes into the conditions because quite often plant tags annoy me, right? And I've talked to AB about this as a newbie. I'm like, because what does the sun with the half shaded color, like how much sun is that really? Do you know what I mean? Like I would love someone to talk through all of those things. Something like this book I think would just, you know, it just really fills the gap between walking to the nursery and maybe it's going to help us cure, well, people like me who have this plant everything-itis.
Tell me a bit more about that.
I just want to buy all the plants and just fill them in the garden.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to plant everything. Maybe it's what we get when when people find a topic and they get really excited about it and that's all they do is they talk about it and then
That's most gardeners.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. I'm not the only one.
No. It is a hobby and it is an area of interest, working out or gardening in general. But I really would encourage people to try to find a way to be interested in working out like what plants grow where, but also working out those characteristics of your garden. Because while it makes plant selection easier, and this is what I did learn from my friends, is like you said, you go to a nursery and you're like, what the hell am I going to put, like, where, like, oh, cool, like there's the ground cover section, there's a tree section there. Well, what's going to grow in my garden? And, yeah, I would encourage people to go to a local nursery because the horticulturists there they usually have a really high degree of knowledge of the local area as well and what will grow really well in those soils. Yeah, so getting to know those characteristics will ideally help to narrow down an overwhelming choice of what you could potentially plant in there and help you deal with that plant everythingitis. Minimize the symptoms.
Thinking of the plant everythingitis, I've noticed that in your book you use Latin names and that it's really common for people in the beginning to use, I don't know what we call them, common names.
Common names, yeah.
Common names.
Yeah.
So lamb's ears have a name of, starts with S.
Yes.
I don't know.
Stackies.
Stackies, there you go.
Yeah.
But my big question is it important for us to learn the Latin names?
And my little answer is yes.
Why?
Can I swear?
Yeah.
I fucking hate common names so much.
Do you?
Because the problem with plants and common names, there's so many plants in the world. And the problem with common names is there's often multiple common names associated with one species of plant, or they're so generic, most common names, that you don't actually know what species you're referring to. When we're talking about like growing requirements of plants, they can be different. Like with the Banksia genus, which hopefully most people might know what a Banksia is, very big, beautiful flowers, Australian group of plants. There's some species of Banksia that absolutely need to grow in sandy soils in full sun. But then there's a species of Banksia whose common name useful common name is the swamp Banksia. And there's a few other species actually in the genus that will grow in like water or on the edge of a creek or pond, it's a swamp Banksia. Yeah. So if you just go in going, I want a Banksia or something, or I want a white camellia or whatever, it's really not helpful for when you're doing your research. It's not helpful when you go into a nursery as well, needing help and just like having a really generic common name. But it's particularly with the research too and the advice that you can give. If you know the plant species name, then again, it can all just help lead to healthier plants, healthier gardens, success in your garden.
Yeah, success is huge, isn't it? Because quite often that can deter you from, like, if something's failed, you're more likely to go, oh, that just doesn't work here. But it might actually have been something you could have changed and helped it succeed. And it costs money in the long run, doesn't it? When you spend all this money on plants and then they'll die and you're like, oh, well, I'm not a gardener. I'm not a green thumb. I don't have green thumbs.
Yeah, that's another thing that puts people off gardening too, is that it ends up costing them money. I get really excited when a plant dies. Like,
why?
Yes, I can go and buy another one.
That's so good.
But a lot of people, if it's not like your favourite hobby that you're happy to spend money on and you just want a garden that doesn't look like death, then it can be a big thing for when your plants don't succeed. And you're like, well, I'm just wasting money. So, again, like sort of building that knowledge and building those characteristics of your garden, doing your research, which I find fun. And I know not everyone will. But hopefully maybe if the book is enjoyable to read, then that's a decent amount of research they're able to do.
And like I think I was saying it before, or I'll just say it now, that it's the type of book when a problem or a question comes up in your mind, you don't have to go to Google. It's in the book and it's, reputable and it's easy to read. So, yeah,
thanks.
So good. So you've spent a lot of time not just growing gardens, but also growing gardeners, especially beginners. And it feels like we're at a bit of a crossroads. So Paul Bangay recently reflected that when he started his career, gardens were places to engage with plants. So people knew their names, probably the Latin names,
probably
got their hands dirty and they tended the gardens themselves. And now he was quoted in a Good Weekend article last year, saying that gardens have become more like outdoor rooms and increasingly people are hiring designers and gardeners. What he finds worrying is that the actual skills of gardening are disappearing. But I went on a rabbit hole, went down a rabbit hole and found that a recent Australian Institute survey with Grow It Local found that almost 45% of Australians are growing food at home and even more want to, especially the younger generations. But their biggest barrier is space. Could be, you know, they're in apartments or our residential blocks are getting smaller or the houses are getting bigger.
Yeah.
And many are renting, so they don't know where to begin. So I wanted to ask, how can we pass on plant knowledge in ways that actually stick?
That's a big question. Have we got another 3 hours?
Yeah. Well, you're the person to ask, so I'd just love, to hear your ideas.
I think having connection, I said before, like having your people around you and that connection to community and that people connection to gardens, I really only realised that recently, but that has obviously been a really big thing for me in my life, is that being with people that like the same things as you is a really nice thing. So I think that's definitely something. And a willingness to learn and fail. Our generation, like millennials and younger, we are getting so fail averse that people won't even try something. And we do see this with some students these days as well, is that they're like, oh, I'm really liking the class. They come to you and they're like, or you get a strongly worded email and they're like, really enjoying the class, but I have decided that I'm not going to do the assessments.
Oh, really?
I just, and you just sort of read the undertones of it. It's like, you're just scared of not passing. You're scared of failing at something. And a conversation I had with my old boss a couple of years ago when we were talking about the book, he said, yeah, like people in my generation, and like I've seen with my friends, is that there's a gap in gardening, or they sort of dropped out of favour for whatever reason. A question is on my mind a lot.
Okay.
And I think it might have something to do with a fear of failure, in that if I buy a plant, well, what if it dies? It's like, well, great, it died, you're going to buy another one. Cool. And yeah, gardens have changed, like in the quote that you just said, and they're becoming smaller, which means that in a small space, and I'm finding this in my house that I've been in for 2 years now, it's smaller than when I was living at Nana and Pa's, which was a 1/4 acre block. I could chuck in a plant wherever I wanted. Didn't have to think about it. But in a smaller space now, I'm like, this is a highly priced. Every square metre is precious. So and I've struggled with it, I need to be really smart about the plant decisions that I make to get the most out of it. And I know how to garden. And for someone that doesn't, then maybe that's something else as well. But gardening is supposed to be a lot of people find it, relaxing, meditative sort of experience. But again, that fear of failure and a fear of the unknown, where you come in, you bought your forever home with your young family, and you come into this garden and you're like, oh, I have no idea what these plants are. I don't know what they need. And I'm thinking of a friend at the moment. Her and her husband just moved into a house at the end of last year, and she messaged me. We had a heat wave over Australia Day weekend this year.
Yep.
4 days of like over 30, which we haven't had for quite a few years. And a liquid amber tree in their backyard just like dropped a whole heap of leaves. And she messaged me, very, very smart person, this person. And she said, it's dropped all these leaves. What do I need to do? What's going on? I was like, oh, it's all good, mate. It's just stressed out. Don't worry about it. It's not going to die. Look, here's some things you could do. As I just said, like smaller spaces, you don't want to make people don't want to make mistakes. People don't want to fail, and there's a lot of unknown. So I just wonder if maybe that's part of it. I don't have a fully fledged answer though.
No, but it's interesting to think about, because a lot of, like, if you're observing it and other people are observing it, then there's something there. Yeah, fear of failure is hard. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And before you came today, I looked at my garden, and there's so many half-done jobs because, I run a business from home. I have little kids, and then literally in the pockets of doing all the things to keep everyone alive, I find time to go out into the garden and keep them alive, although they're doing a good job at the moment keeping themselves alive.
You're just building independence in them. It's fine.
Oh, that's a great way. Yeah. Great way to think about it. But you can also, I feel, struggle with everyone else has a garden that looks good all the time. And then I was apologising to you saying, please don't judge my garden because we're in the middle of winter and I've redesigned things and I put more perennials in so that they're still just slowly coming out at the moment. And I don't know, maybe we also in the age of social media, and I don't hate social media because this is literally how this podcast grows and we talk to people, we can suffer from I need it to look good all the time and then the comparisonitis as well. And it becomes about how the thing looks, not about what the process actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you say in the book, gardening is such a process and you can't create a garden instantly. Well, you can, but it costs you a lot of money to buy established trees.
There's money to do that. No one I know.
Yeah. And maybe, we've had all those TV shows over the last 20 years, where they go in and they redo a garden and you have an instant garden. Yeah. And maybe that is intimidating as well.
I think that's given people it's given people the wrong idea of how to create a garden. It's called doing a backyard blitz. Great TV show. I used to love it. But looking at episodes of Backyard Blitz now, everything in those gardens was so overplanted. They probably spent twice the amount of what they need to spend on plants because those plants will fill those spaces. You don't need to completely fill it immediately.
Yeah. And
people think that you do the garden and then that's the garden.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's a process. I think also something else just come to me. People might also see it as, well, you do your garden and then it's done, and then anything after that is a little bit of a chore.
Yeah, okay.
Like you've got enough stuff to do inside the house that you don't want the garden to be a chore too. And again, another driver for the way that I've written the book is to try to set people up with the knowledge of how to garden so that it becomes enjoyable for them and that's something they want to spend their spare time doing. Because when something is a chore, man, like it sucks when you have to do it. And don't want gardening to feel like that. And I mean, I have a pretty busy life and the book has made me very busy for the last couple of years. So that sort of impacted my time that I can spend in the garden. And I don't want it to feel like a chore either. So that's one of my other drivers for trying to teach people about it is to make it easier as well.
Yeah. And so then having the knowledge of what to plant where can also help with that, can't it? Because then you won't plant, like if you plant a hedge that needs constant pruning every 8 weeks, there are low maintenance options. And I think that's what you've done really well is you've given us options on this works well in this soil, well, then you could try this plant, but it won't need to be, it's not needy and those type of things. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a doozy of a question, isn't it?
It's such a big question. It's and hopefully maybe listeners can go away and think about maybe what's taken them so long to get into gardening, why they maybe haven't before, what is a barrier for them to enjoy it. Like, is it a fear of failure? Is it a chore to you? Do you not have time? Because I know when I'm busy and if I've got too much going on, one of my signs is when I don't have time to cook dinner at night. I mean, not every single night. I love leftovers. But I'm like, if I'm starting to get too busy that I'm getting takeaway more often or really basic meals, basic-ish meals, I'm like, okay, I need to sort of like readjust my time priorities here. Because I like cooking and I find it quite relaxing to do at the end of the day. I don't have kids also who are demanding and just complaining about stuff. And maybe people can maybe think about gardening in that sense too. It's like, well, yeah, why don't you enjoy it? Is it a time thing? The failure that we mentioned, the lack of knowledge, is it a chore to you? Because the only thing that should be a chore is like cleaning the bathroom and toilet.
Like cleaning the toilet.
They're the pits.
Yeah.
They're the pits.
Yeah.
Gardening should not be a chore.
So true. Yeah. And then if it is, taking a step back, like you said, and going, oh, what's really going on here? Because there are so many benefits to it, which is what this article that Paul Bangay was a part of was all about, the wellness that it brings and that,
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a fancy landscape. Like he mentioned in there, you know, these outdoor rooms and outdoor spaces. It's like, yeah, we've got enough indoor spaces because like you said, houses are getting bigger. We don't need fancy outdoor spaces, in my humble opinion. Like just grow some plants and it doesn't need to look great. And you need to, so you shouldn't feel guilty about and feel and apologise for your garden, Cass. You just need to get judgier of other people's gardens.
That's a good one.
Because like it's, who cares? Yeah. Just, and gardens have their seasons too. Like and especially in winter, especially in Australia or southern Australia in winter, our plants slow down. But because we don't have freezing cold winters, they don't get nicely cryo-frozen like some of those, beautiful perennial gardens of Europe and North America. They just sort of go into this like limp state and it's pretty uninspiring. So that's another thing as well.
Yeah. Well, you've already mentioned 2 sentimental plants, and because this is the Sentimental podcast, can we talk about the third plant that has a sentimental meaning or memory attached to it?
Yeah, so I spoke about Pa earlier, and the other plant in my garden that I have in my garden still today is a couple of my Nana's rock orchids. They're pretty decent size now because she obviously I remember them being in her garden forever, and my mum's now got the rest of them. Nana, well, I mean, let's call it wild collected them.
Wild collected.
Yeah, her and Pa used to do, they retired and do a bit of travelling or something. I don't know the botanical name or the like species names of them, but they definitely, as she used to say, fell into her pocket. And and it's sort of, they're in a category of I would call like generational or like intergenerational plants that can be passed on because these orchids are such long-lived plants. So like obviously Nana collected them, Mum's got a couple now and I've got a couple. I know I have a friend who has a geranium in a pot that she's like moved from rental to rental to rental that was her grandmother's. Her grandmother died 20 or 30 years ago or something, and she's still got that geranium of her grandmother's. So when I was thinking of sentimental gardener stuff, like that is the carrot is very sentimental, but that's the most sentimental plant that I have in my garden, and a direct connection to my very cheeky, naughty Nana.
She sounds cheeky.
Yeah, she had a really good sense of humour.
And you described them as they're epiphytic rock orchids?
Epiphytic rock orchids is correct. So they're growing on like a tree fern board. One of them is just a regular flat surface, and Nana used to have them hanging up on a couple of posts. And when like we were talking about appropriate climate and aspect before as well, this particular garden bed where she had them growing, and I remember they used to flower quite regularly too. It was an east-facing garden bed, so get really beautiful, soft, gentle morning sun, and they were completely protected by the house from anything from hot sun from midday onwards. And that's what some of those need for them to grow really well. I've seen like Sydney rock orchids, the Dendrobium, it's got a new name now. Dendrobium speciosum is its old name. I've seen them growing on like north-facing cliff faces, rock faces. Really, really harsh environments in between cracks in the rocks. So that's sort of like the edge of their tolerance, but they grow really well with a bit of gentle morning sun and protected like that. Mum had one a little bit more exposed for a while, but she moved it underneath a magnolia tree, and it's growing much better with a bit of protection.
Okay.
Like the leaves don't get blistery and yellow, and they still flower fine every now and then. So there's one that's on a flat tree fern surface, but the other one in the image that I was showing you, it's a round tree fern surface, but I've got it hanging up because the little orchids have grown all the way around.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, and when it flowers, it gets these most delicate pink, 20-cent coin-sized bright pink flowers on it. And in the afternoon when it heats up a bit, the scent is so strong.
Oh, they have perfume.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and I could get more out of them if I like watered them with sea salt more often and maybe a liquid fertilizer a bit more often. But I haven't had time and I can't be bothered. And they're surviving. So I know what I could do to do more, but I just haven't put the time into it.
They sound like they want to live anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
They're just,
they're pretty tough.
They're there.
Yeah, they're pretty tough.
Oh, that's such a special memory that they're attached to.
Yeah.
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 And sums up the personality of your nana.
Yeah. I think it sums her up pretty well.
Well, to round things up, I'm going to do some quick fire questions.
All right.
Are you ready? And just the first thing that pops into your mind,
okay,
just to make it a little bit fun at the end. If you had to pick one, would it be a garden with a lawn or a garden with succulents?
Oh, that's not fair at all. I hate both.
I know.
This is actually kind of easy.
Okay.
Because I hate succulents, but their flowers are pretty cool. So I'll go with the succulents in the hope that I can get them flowering.
Awesome. If you had to be one, would you be a plant that thrives on neglect or one that demands daily devotion?
Neglect. Hardcore neglect. I hate high maintenance people. I don't want plants to be high maintenance either.
Now, some plants have superpowers, like carnivorous perfumes and spikes, like or prickly bits.
Yeah.
If you could have a plant superpower, what would it be and why?
Okay. You hit me with this last night, so thank you for giving me the other ones I didn't know I was going to get. But this one, so I like cooking, so I don't need a photosynthesize. Okay. I like hugs, so I don't want to have thorns or prickles.
Okay.
Carnivorous plants I could get around because I love eating meat. But actually this one lines up with the previous rapid fire that you just asked me, is that I would like those ephemeral resurrection traits where you can just like hang out until your favourable conditions come up and then you're like, bang, I'm alive again. I'm here. I like longevity.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's so good. All right. What's your favourite plant pun from The Rookie Gardener, or one that made you laugh the most when you wrote it?
Sometimes when I've been going through drafts, I think my nectar brings all the pollinators to the yard is probably one of my favourites.
That did make me lol.
It's one of my least favourite songs of all time because it's an earworm. It's a shocker and it's a filthy song.
Yeah.
Like it's a filthy
terrible
song. It's so bad. But man, you can apply a lot of different puns to that one. And I think it really fits the topic that I was talking about there.
So good. All right. One word or sentence to describe how you feel when you're in the garden.
I just took a breath. So whatever that is.
Oh, Sandra Swartz, she calls it the exhale factor.
Oh.
Yeah. In her book, Restore.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, it's one of the reasons why I have not gone viral on Instagram because I don't take my phone out with me when I go gardening. It's one of those, I'm very big on having activities and hobbies that are device and technology free, and gardening these days especially, gardening is one of those. So I don't take my phone. I'll post the odd picture of plants and all that sort of stuff, but I don't take my phone out to like say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or videoing what I'm doing because that's not what gardening is for me. Gardening these days is a device-free activity.
That's really cool. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I tend to take my phone and then I put it somewhere in the garden. Then I can't
Never
find it. So I try now not to take it and I leave it at the front door.
Yeah.
But, that's really special, isn't it? Because I've noticed that you can get into the zone and just be out there and in the moment so much more when I've never done a slow-mo of me doing anything. But when you're not about capturing the right light or the aesthetic, there's some moments for that. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Bringing the focus back to what it does for you, not what you have to then put out. So good.
Yeah.
All right, last one.
Mm-hmm.
One person, alive or dead, that you'd love to share a cuppa with and swap garden stories or listen to their garden stories.
Oh, that's a tricky one. We mentioned Beth Chatto and that quote before, but I don't know much else about her. But I would love to meet Edna Walling. So local to us in eastern Melbourne, and from what I've heard, phenomenal personality.
Is it true that one of your friends or your mentors knew her?
Yeah, Roger actually worked for her, and it's her fault we've got Roger in horticulture.
Really?
He was studying chemical engineering or something at uni, and he answered a job in the paper. She'd put in a job for gardeners, and he was looking for some extra money, and he answered a job and started working with her. And she said, I think you'd be better off in this, and not doing chemical engineering or whatever it was. And he said, we better speak to my parents about it. She came and spoke to his parents and obviously convinced them. And the rest is history. So I like that I have a bit of an Edna connection through Roger, and I look after Roger and Gwen's garden sometimes these days as well,
lovely.
which is a really nice connection. But I've heard stories about her. She was a really strong woman.
Was she?
She had her opinions and she was very determined. And I think that's really cool, particularly in that time. She was active in her work from the 20s to the 60s, 1960s, I think, maybe a bit on each side. I'm not quite sure. Like to have a cuppa with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so good.
Yeah.
Well, Chloe Foster, thank you so much for being my guest today and being so generous with your stories and sharing your knowledge. And your book is out in September coming up. And where can people find the book and pre-order the book if they're listening before September?
I love saying this. All good bookstores. You can pre-order it online from any bookstore. And obviously I would encourage people to go to their independent bookshops if possible, if you can. But anywhere online you should be able to find it and pre-order it. And then when it comes out, it'll be available anywhere too. And your independents, if they don't have it, they'll be able to order it in.
And where can we find you on Instagram?
Foster Your Garden.
Love it. Well, thank you for sharing your love of plants and your bad plant puns with us today. It's been an honour.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Do you know what I love most about Chloe's approach? That she meets people exactly where they are, even if they're standing in a garden thinking, I have absolutely no floriferous idea what I'm doing. Maybe that's because she was that person once, winging it with a hose, a handful of seeds, and a carrot so weird it became show and tell material. When she talks about her pa's carrots or her nana's wild collected rock orchids, you hear someone who understands that our earliest plant relationships lay the groundwork for everything that follows. That four-headed carrots didn't just feed a curious child, it planted the seed for a career built on sharing plant knowledge with joy and generosity. But Chloe also reminds us that somewhere along the line, gardening picked up a reputation it didn't ask for. High stakes, high aesthetic, and just a little bit precious. When really, it's meant to be a bit scruffy, a bit experimental, and totally forgiving. Maybe what we need isn't more perfect Instagram gardens, but more permission to fail. To start with, what even is this plant, and work from there. To leave our phones by the front door and remember that gardening is meant to help us exhale, not perform. Because gardens aren't separate from the ecosystems we live in, and we don't need to escape to the wilderness to reconnect. Sometimes the most meaningful engagement with the living world happens right outside our back or front doors. Not just for the sake of biodiversity, but for our own sense of grounding, presence, and participation. So here's to the rookie gardeners ready to get started, and to teachers like Chloe who believe everyone can learn to speak plant. May you find your people among the gardening legends, and may your garden become a place of experiments, not expectations. You can find Chloe's book, The Rookie Gardener, at all good bookstores, and follow Chloe's adventures at Foster Your Garden on Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review, as it really helps others find these stories. A big thank you to Hayden Schuller from Berea Gardening for the theme music, and Tom Dowding for sound support. This is The Sentimental Gardener, produced and edited by me, Cass Dowding.